Hello friends. In this session, we shall discuss writing central ideas and writing structure, argument and discussion. In this session, I shall give a detailed guide on identifying, developing and presenting the main argument in an academic writing. We must remember that expressing oneself, the central ideas, clearly and coherently is the backbone of any strong academic writing. Let us now discuss the main module overview. Today, the module overview is as follows: writing structure, how to present the central claim, best practices to strive for clarity and rigor, and practical exercises to reinforce the skill development. At the end, references will also be provided to support concepts and provide further reading. So let us begin. We must understand the central idea in an academic writing and what is its significance. The central idea is the core claim or thesis around which the entire paper is organized. It encapsulates the research question, the argument that you will advance, and the contribution to the field. A well-defined central idea provides focus, guides evidence selection, and shapes the reader's understanding of the significance of the article. It also gives clarity, specificity, relevance, and balance to any kind of academic writing. This we shall discuss in detail in a few minutes' time. But right at the beginning, let me also remind you that a central idea does not necessarily mean that in an academic writing it has to be expressed in one single sentence. One must remember that in an academic writing, the central idea can be expressed over a few sentences, an entire paragraph, which would be coherent, correctly organized, and gives a direction to the objective and capacity of the academic writing. As we had mentioned a few minutes back, the central idea gives clarity, specificity, relevance, and balance to any kind of academic writing. So it is preferred that the central idea is written towards the outset of an academic writing, that is, almost at the beginning of the article. Let us discuss the key characteristics: clarity, specificity, relevance, and balance. Clarity is where the idea should be stated or clearly implied early in the paper. Specificity, we must remember that it should be precise enough to be defendable within the scope of the work. So, whatever claim that we are articulating as the central idea, that should be defendable. That is, it must be justified in the scope of the paper itself. Relevance. It should be connected to the existing literature and fill a gap or respond to a problem. So, the relevance of the article should be very clearly mentioned right at the outset. It cannot be a repetition of a work which is already done and has been done repeatedly or too many times beforehand. There has to be something original filling a gap in that research area. And the final one is balance. We must remember that it should be ambitious yet feasible, and it should have connection with the method and data that has been collected in the course of the research work. We will now take a look at the steps to identify and articulate the central argument. Let us take a look. Clarify the research question. Survey the literature. Formulate a tentative thesis. Test for scope and feasibility. Refine the thesis. One must remember that these steps are all about the central argument. It does not necessarily apply to the entire research article. Only the central idea needs these 5 points to be remembered and followed so that the central idea is written properly. We must repeat and let me explain them step by step. Clarify the research question. Before getting on with a research article, the writer must already have a central objective of study. That is going to be the research question. So, articulating it very clearly is very important. One must begin writing by articulating or expressing or pinning down this research question. Then the entire article can be spun around this one sentence. Then comes the survey of literature. Once the research question is settled, then literature review provides a wide range of already existing corpus of knowledge around this research question. That has to be collected in connection with the research question. Then, formulating a tentative thesis is very important. It can also mean that shortening of the research question is done, or it can also be the opposite. That is, the research question might get elaborated and extended to become a tentative thesis in the article. Then comes testing for scope and feasibility. This is also a part of the central argument, where the writer has to justify the feasibility, scope, and the relevance and significance of this research work. How it contributes to the existing corpus of knowledge, how will it add to that existing corpus, is very important to be mentioned in this central argument. Finally, when all these have been mentioned in the central argument, then it should be refined and polished to look organized and compact. We must remember that any kind of repetition of ideas or opinions should be avoided in this part of the research article. A central argument should be very crisp and clearly formulated. Now let us take a look at a few quick tips to begin any research article. Write your central claim as a single sentence, then expand into a full paragraph. As I said earlier, that it should be a singular sentence which later can be spun around and can be extended into a complete paragraph, and then the entire article follows. Use active voice and precise terms relevant to your field. Frame the contribution. What are the contributions? What is new? Why it matters? And how you will demonstrate it. So, the central argument must have these 3 questions answered very clearly. Let us repeat. What is new that we are presenting in the research article? Why it matters? That is, what is its significance? And then, how you will demonstrate it. In this part, the methodological extension of the paper, that is, how the paper will be unfurled in the following pages, that is summarized and written. Let us take a look at a basic structure of an academic paper. In social sciences and humanities, IMRAD structure, very commonly known as the IMRAD structure, is used. What is an IMRAD? Introduction, methods, results, analysis and discussion, or a literature-driven argument with sections for theory, method, analysis and conclusion. This is a standard structure of a research article. It must have an introduction, methods, results and discussion. Or commonly, a literature-driven argument is also presented in a research work where first the theory is mentioned, then the methods of supporting or counteracting it, then analysis, and finally comes the conclusion where the summarized version of the takeaways are written very clearly. In a generic academic paper, the structure must have the following in sequence: title, abstract, introduction, which would have literature review, methods, results, discussion, conclusion, and finally comes the references and appendices. One must remember that a title, however much we begin with it, actually gets finalized after the entire article is written. A title, as a reader sees as a beginning of an article, is not the same for a writer. For a writer, the title is the final touch that he gives at the end of the paper. It actually somewhere summarizes what is expected from the article. Then the abstract. The abstract is a very brief overview of the entire article. Here, the central claim is also written very briefly, but it must be there. The introduction is like a foreword, a preface, which gives a very organized beginning, a start to an academic writing. It also contains the literature review sometimes. The literature review connects the present argument with the already existing body of knowledge around the same subject. This is followed by methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Finally, the paper must have references and citations, appendices to support the argument. Let us remember a few quick tips while writing an academic paper and particularly the central argument. Use a logical progression, that is, context, question, approach, evidence, interpretation, and implications. Then, another thing that we must remember is signposting every idea very clearly. What is meant by signposting? Signposting is nothing but using subheadings, paragraph headings, organized divisions to make very clear distinction between different ideas. Use topic sentences, transitions, and explicit statements about how each section supports the central idea. Signposting phrases like, in contrast, this suggests, consequently, therefore, etc. are helpful fillers which work as signposting statements to begin any topical sentences. Remember that one must ensure each section has a discernible purpose aligned with the central claim. As we have discussed earlier in other discussions as well, every sentence, every paragraph that we write in an academic article should be related to its central claim. Anything extra, redundant, additional information which is not directly relevant to the existing argument should be avoided to be posted and presented in the central body of the research article. It is not required because it can give a kind of a misdirection to the article. All sections in a paragraph should be very clearly aligned to the central theme or argument of the research article. At this point, we would take a quick quiz as always. Today's first question is, what is IMRAD? Remember, what is IMRAD? We just discussed it a few minutes back. It is the abbreviation for a generic structure of writing, which is introduction, method, results, analysis, and discussion. So IMRAD is a standard structure of a critical paper, which follows introduction, methods, result, analysis, and discussion as the sequential subparts of an academic writing. Now we shall discuss how to present the main argument. What are the various techniques and best practices that can be followed while presenting the main argument? Let us take a look. A guiding claim to start and to return to. What is a guiding claim? A guiding claim is a primary objective or central claim that a research article begins with. And an entire study goes into the whole research article, which finally comes back again to the guiding claim as justified. So a guiding claim becomes the starting point as well as a point of return in a research article. Then comes building a coherent argumentative arc. What is a coherent argumentative arc? Once the guiding claim is proposed right at the start, then the rest of the article is an evidential exposition of how that guiding claim can be justified. That has to be done in a coherent argumentative manner, which can come back again justifying that guiding claim. So, naturally, the argumentative arc would have a logical structure. In this entire process, the evidences that are collected in the research project are also integrated to support the guiding claim. So if I propose a statement, then it has to be justified and supported by various evidential claims. Those need to be integrated very, very carefully in the course of the research argument. In the process of a research article, providing counter-arguments are also very important. Unless we provide counter-arguments, then a research article looks very one-sided and partial. In order to strike up a balance, the counter-arguments existing in this particular research field also need to be mentioned. Then only a topic can be debated over and a conclusion can be justified. Consistence of terminology. One must remember that if very specific terminologies, terms, jargons are used in a research article, then it has to be explained very clearly, and once it is explained, then it can be used at relevant points consistently and coherently. Throwing in terminologies and jargons at random within a research article is not a good practice. We must remember that proper explanation and making it lucid and available to the readers should be first done. Then only it can be used in the course of a research argument. Linking sentences to balance the analysis. We must remember that every sentence that is used in a research article should have a connection with its preceding concepts and ideas and also with its concepts and ideas that would follow. So it should not be standing alone like a separate idea. Any sentence must not stand alone like a separate idea. It should be linked and aligned with what is preceding and what is following. Now let us see how to develop the discussions, linking evidence to claims. As we said, that when a research claim is proposed at the beginning of a research article, then the entire paper depends on how the evidences are integrated to support this claim. So we must remember the following points. Let us take a look. Thematic framing. Group evidences by themes that align with your central argument. So all the evidences must be aligned thematically and connected to the central argument. Any evidence which later is found to be not so connected or relevant should actually be avoided to be incorporated in a research argument. Causality and implication analysis. Explain what the findings imply for theory, practice, or policy. When an evidence is incorporated or put into a research article, then it must be explained very well. What is its implication? What is its relevance? What is its significance? Then comes limitations and future direction. Mentioning these two in the course of a research article is very, very important. A limitation of the research is a very important part of the research itself. It must be mentioned. And future direction. Where this research will take us in future. What is its significance in the long run? How it will add to the existing body of knowledge. These are the elements that must be included in the future directions in this research article. Conclude with a takeaway that reinforces the central claim. As we discussed earlier, the takeaway that reinforces the central claim is basically a process in which the guiding claim right at the beginning is returned to. So how are we ending a critical writing or an academic paper? We are actually returning to what we had begun with. But this time, it is proved and justified. We are actually coming back to what we had begun with. But this time, it is proven and justified with evidences that has been written in between in the process. Now, let us discuss writing style and voice for academic excellence. Any research article should strive for academic excellence. Its quality should be such that it is polished and perfected to reach the highest academic efforts. And in order to do so, one must follow a standard writing style and develop one's own personal voice. Remember the following 6 points before you begin writing. Clarity and conciseness. Formal tone, that is using objective third-person voice. Coherence and cohesion. Precision of ideas. Impersonality and evidence-based reasoning. Synthesis over summary. Let me explain them briefly now. As we have discussed earlier, a research article must have clarity and compactness and must be brief and concise. There should be least repetition unless absolutely required for the sake of explanation. We must remember that the entire article should follow a formal tone of expression. Any kind of slangs or informal language must be avoided. Third-person voice must be used. Coherence and cohesion with the central idea must be maintained. All resources utilized must be directly aligned to the research argument. Then, precision. The structure, organization of the research article should be very precise and perfected. No extra frills should be there in a research article. Then comes impersonality and evidence-based reasoning. An article that is meant for academic purposes must not have the personal opinions of a writer. It should be backed more by logical reasoning and evidences. So it should be impersonal and objective. It must avoid any kind of personal reflections in it unless absolutely required for the sake of the argument. Then comes synthesis over summary. However long or short is a research article, it should conclude in a brief summarization which is synthesized in an organized manner at the end of the research article. A summary provides an outline of what has been discussed so long. In all these sessions that we have carried out, you must have seen that the end of these sessions also include a small summary which integrates all that has been discussed in the preceding few minutes as a part of our discussion. Similarly, in a research article also, a summarization is much needed. We will now discuss some strategies for polished writing. Verify evidences and citations. Language quality. Read aloud. Peer feedback. Final checks. Once a research article is in the process of construction and when it is done, in these two points of time, these 5 tips come very handy. Let us check once more. Verify evidence and citations. When paraphrase, summary, quotations are utilized to support an argument, then the verification of citation is a very important task. It should be clearly aligned. Language quality. Every paragraph, every sentence must have a very coherent language quality. Certain portions easy, certain portions difficult, certain portions comprising of informal language sometimes make a research article very imbalanced. That should be avoided. It should have a coherence. A quick tip at this point, which we have discussed in one of our earlier discussions, that is, reading aloud is a very important technique of minimizing errors. And also it gives us an idea of how much time it takes to read that particular article. Reading aloud makes the writer be aware of what he or she has written and whether they are correctly framed, the syntax are correct or not. Reading aloud is a very important technique to minimize errors in any writing. Then comes peer feedback. In the process of writing and at the end of the writing, make your peers read your article. When peers read our articles and give feedback, it forms very valuable response to our research and our writing. Finally comes the final checks. Once an entire research article is written, it should be read multiple times to see that all citations are in place, no citations have been missed, the language quality is perfect, and all inclusions have been integrated very seamlessly in the course of the academic writing. We would now do a practical exercise. Pick up a research article within your discipline and interest and identify the central idea. This can be done on an existing resource that you are utilizing for your academic writing. Just pick up the central idea from that resource. Create your own opinion, supporting or contesting that particular idea which you have selected. Suppose the idea you have selected is something you believe in, or maybe you don't. In either case, write down your own opinion as a response. How are you going to do it? You are going to first use mind map or bullet points to initiate that thought process. Then, create a topical sentence integrating those points. So once you have pointed out what are the points of contest or the points of support, then it can be integrated with the help of a topical sentence. Then add linking statements or linking sentences and try to extend the idea into a proper paragraph or a complete research article. In this way, from one sentence to multiple sentences to a paragraph and then to an entire research article. This is how we extend and give shape to our research article. A quick checklist to remember. When we are writing an article in the process and right at the end, this checklist must be followed. Have I clearly stated the central idea early in the introduction? Is the thesis contestable and specific? Does every section advance a sub-claim that supports the central idea? Are the transitions and signposts used to guide the reader clear enough? Is evidence presented clearly and analyzed in relation to the claim? Are the counter-arguments acknowledged and addressed? Is the writing style clear, formal, and appropriately scoped? Have I reviewed for coherence, citation accuracy, and formatting? We must remember that unless all these points in the checklist are fully covered, we must not consider our research article to be complete. Once it fulfills all these 6 or 7 points, then only we can say that our research article is completed. Finally, here is a list of references and further reading that can help our students to have deeper understanding of how to go about academic writing. The Craft of Research, published by the University of Chicago Press. The Moves That Matter in Academic Writing. How to Communicate Your Ideas in Science. Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association, that is the APA 7th edition. The MLA Handbook 9th edition. University Writing Center's resources like Purdue OWL, Writing in the Disciplines. These can be very helpful starting points for our students. Then 8 Swords, Stylish Academic Writing, published by Harvard University Press. And finally, Academic Writing for Graduate Students, Essential Tasks and Skills, is a very important book that every student must follow for writing very strong academic articles. We shall conclude with a final activity. Let us start ideating a topic for larger research. Here is a generic one. Try and chisel it into a larger academic write-up, underscoring its various topical points. You can use all that you have learned in these sessions and create a completely original research article. The topic is Books Can Be Replaced in a Few Years' Time. Books can be replaced in a few years' time. This topic can be approached in various ways, and there can be multiple very interesting opinions supporting or counter-arguing this claim. Write them down. Then add organized coherence, balance, evidences, examples to your points. Finally, you will find that a complete research article has taken its shape. Write down, do you agree with this statement? If yes or no, start writing down your responses first. Then use resources, literature review, and evidences to support your viewpoints. Incorporate the counter arguments too. Then finally, you will find that as you organize them in a coherent manner, a complete research article has taken its shape. Then the conclusion should have a balance. It must not completely support or not support a claim. It should have a balanced conclusion considering all logical possibilities. Now, as we have come to the end of this session, let us summarize what we learnt in the session. In this episode, we learnt how to focus down our viewpoints by identifying the topical area or argument, the evidences and discussions around it, and then how to structure it into a sequential exposition. Like every time, I would once more conclude by encouraging you to keep thinking, keep writing, and keep writing better. Thank you.